That's where I. All right. I do a search.
Good afternoon and welcome to the special meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners for June the 5th. We're actually going to follow this immediately with a regular meeting. There's a little bleed over. We actually have a special meeting just for the budget ordinance adoption. We're going to begin today's meeting with an invocation from Pastor Timbelia Covington. She's with Exodus United Baptist Church, and then we're at the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Woodbury, and I'd like to ask you to stand if you are able.
Let us all take a posture for prayer. Gracious and sovereign God, we come before you today with hearts full of reverence, and we invite your presence in this moment of decision and governance. As the Board of Commissioners of Forsyth County gathers for this special meeting, we humbly commit this time, these discussions, and every person in attendance into your care. Lord, we deposit this meeting into your charge, and we entrust it into your wisdom, into your protection, and into your perfect guidance. We recognize the weight of responsibility that rests on these leaders' shoulders, and so today we ask for your grace to abound, your mercy to be near, and your spirit to rest upon each commissioner. Grant them ears to listen deeply, not only to each other, but to the voices of every resident they serve. Give them hearts courageous enough to elevate difficult conversations and hands ready to build bridges across divisions. May they lead not from a place of fear or self-interest, but from a place of love, fairness, and an unwavering commitment to the common good. We pray for the just and equitable distribution of resources so that no neighbor, no family, and no person be left unseen or underserved. Ignite within them a holy passion for justice and turn that passion into action that heals, restores, and uplifts. Come to our rescue, O Lord, and hear our cry, as you did for David when he said, "Have mercy on us. God, according to thy loving kindness, hide thy face from our sin and blot out our iniquities. Create in us a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within us." Lord, be our refuge and our strength, our wisdom and our guide. And when this meeting concludes, may it reflect your justice, your compassion, and your care for every resident of Forsyth County. It is in your holy name that we pray and say amen. Amen.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As I mentioned earlier, today's special meeting is basically to consider solely the adoption of the fiscal year 25-26 Forsyth County Budget Ordinance, and we had a public hearing that was held and closed on May the 19th, 2025. I have a couple of introductory comments that I want to make before we consider adoption of the FY26 budget. And first, I'd like to talk a little bit about the school deficit. On Monday, Vice Chair Wisenhunt and County Manager Robinson and I attended a meeting with a number of people there, school board members. We had the former now, Tricia McManus, the superintendent, and we had the new interim superintendent, Caddy Moore. We had State Superintendent Mo Green joined us electronically, as did State Board Chair Eric Davis. He joined electronically, but we did have the Vice Chair of State Board, Alan Duncan, in attendance. We had HIL financial consultants with the school board and various staff members from the school system. The State Board had several staff members there. And we also had online the Department of Public Instruction Finance Director, Alexis Schaus. And we met for over 2 hours and discussed a number of issues. One of them was the actual expected financial condition at the end of June for the school district. And that's obviously important to close out the fiscal year and get exactly where we are. Just want to assure, because I know we have a number of school folks here, payroll is in good shape and will be met, and some funds will be available to apply towards deficit, some. Then there was a lot of discussion surrounding basically the state funds and how they're handled in the Department of Public Instruction. And in some cases, there are codes that actually money still remains and actually will be reverted to the state. And the question was whether some other funds and codes that have been overspent would still be provided to finish out the year, because if they're not, it requires some other cash dollars to be used. Essentially, when the HIL consultants determined the $18 million deficit of the school district with state funds, they actually assumed that all of the state dollars would in fact be awarded, even though some of those dollars contributed to the deficit, if you kind of get that, what that's saying. But that was a lot of discussion about where the state is on that and what will they do. That question remains unanswered. We did learn that the state board will actually release the FY26 state funds for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools in July as planned without any reduction. So the new fiscal year will actually continue to operate as if there were no deficit. But as the state finance officer indicated from DPI, that she said this happens many times with school districts for small amounts of money. And they said typically that happens, we go on, and what we do is that we do charge a 1% interest per month. Just want to let that sink in, per month, which when you do that, if it were to continue for 12 months, you're looking at, without much paying, you're paying basically on $18 million, $180,000 a month, plus it gets compounded every month thereafter. So that discussion, we went into some detail about that. And the remainder of the meeting, we actually talked about some sort of next steps, what kind of each group would pursue or do. And particularly the Department of Public Instruction folks are going to look into all the codes I mentioned about the potential of making some moves that they perhaps have not done typically in the past, but they were going to get an answer to some of their questions. And I particularly indicated that I was going to, as I have indicated before, spoken with State Representative Donnie Lambeth a couple of times to explore a possibility, a way that the state would be able to actually provide a loan to the school district, but based on something that was done in several years ago for a hospital owned by a county, so it was a public hospital. That I've already done part of that work and good follow-up, and that's at least seems to be moving in the right direction. So that's kind of the update. Now, we also, we've had a official request from the school board to actually, for us to advance, I think it's $32.1 million. And in that discussion, we have a letter today I'm going to actually read it, and we will actually act on that letter. But I do want to mention that it cannot be done in the special meeting simply because the special meeting is for the budget adoption, and that is where our action must be limited to. But I did want to say, since I know a lot of folks are interested in that as we begin our regular meeting after we finish the budget adoption, that will be the first item. We'll work with that, read the letter, to have any discussion about that, and have an opportunity then to act on it. So that will take place. All right, first was the update on the school district, and the other introductory comment I wanted to make really has to do with last Thursday's special meeting that our commissioners actually discussed community grants in some detail. And I think if you have read the paper, you know that we actually approved a group of community grants. And essentially it also carries a very tiny 0.28 cent tax increase to be a part of that. One item that was included in the community grants originally was the Callidium proposal. And the way, if the state statutes changed a couple of years ago that said that anyone that's on an elected body that sits on the board of directors, and I have been on the Callidium board of directors for the last 11 years, actually cannot vote. And we had some different opinions on that particular issue, and the vote was 3-3, so it actually failed. On Friday, I resigned from the board of Callidium and actually received an acknowledgement from them, and I actually shared copies of my letter as well as Callidium's letter response back to me on Monday with our commissioners. So in terms of looking at our budget ordinance discussion, we actually have just two options. One is the full budget ordinance with Callidium included in the special grants. The second one is to not include it. And Kyle Wolf is going to come forward and actually review different components of the budget ordinance. That's quite a few pages, but he'll hit up the highlights. And they're actually at our places are copies of a kind of a copy A and a copy B of the budget ordinance, and he will reference those, and then we'll be prepared to vote one way or the other. Thank you, Kyle. And by the way, since I have made all these comments, I do want to say that our budget process this year was incredibly thorough, and a whole lot of staff members have worked on this year in a different way. And many people know that back in the spring, we basically froze our positions for a period of time, made a number of adjustments, and with a lot of work, this particular budget is only 0.9% more than last year's budget, and that does a different review. And we've discussed that before, but I would be remiss not to thank folks for the incredible amount of work and a lot of requests that different commissioners have made that we've got a lot of information too. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, board and Ms. Robinson. Chantel, when Chantel became manager, almost immediately, it was one of our first meetings. She said, she was thinking about bringing in a couple of people from the NCACC, Jonna Sharp and Amy Cannon, and it was really just to kind of help her understand the process a little bit better, and also kind of look at our process. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge what a great decision that was on the county manager's part to bring in those outside staffers, and I believe that the process has improved this year in large part with a lot of their suggestions. So it was great. So with that being said, I will go through a couple things just as a clarification, though. So there are two options. One is option A and one is option B. Option A actually is the one that does not include Callidium, and option B is the one that does include Callidium. And so I will go through this on the Elmo. Start here. I do want to highlight a couple of technical corrections that we've made since we presented the budget to you on May 8th. The corrections do even out, and the recommended budget stays at the same amount of $589,204,405. The first one is the recommended budget included some standby payments for volunteer fire departments. These are standby payments that we've had in the budget for several years, and as part of Deputy Manager Haney's work with the fire departments and with the overlay rate adjustment that's going to be made in this budget, it was agreed that those would be eliminated, but they were still in there, so we're taking those out. And then there was an oversight where we have typically included funds for potential salary increases for Forsyth Tech in a budget reserve. What we've done is we've included it in like an enhanced contingency and non-departmental. This year, we took it out of non-departmental with the thought of putting it in the Forsyth Tech budget in a budget reserve, and we took it out in the contingency, but we did not put it in Forsyth Tech. So those two, that adjustment essentially kind of pays for itself. It leaves almost $7,000 to the good. And then we had increased our insurance premiums in the recommended budget, and not knowing what that cost was going to come back, we had factored in a 10% increase. The renewal came in just last week, and the renewal is actually a little bit lower, and 6%, and so there's $173,000 $379 reduction across all departments for insurance premiums.
And that's our liability insurance,
For
not
sure.
health insurance.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And we have seen an increase in our retiree life insurance and so we were just going to budget the remaining funds into this retiree life insurance. I don't believe that it'll be that much, but we are thinking it's going to be, it's much higher than we had budgeted in the 25 budget. It's been absorbed through, we actually did a transfer from contingency, I believe, and so that'll be in your next report from the transfer report. But again, so those adjustments even out, and so again, it keeps the budget at that 589, 204, 405. As Dr. Martin said last Thursday, there was discussion about community grants. There was also a recommendation or a suggestion by one of the board members to maintain the current salary for the Board of Commissioners instead of taking an increase effective July 1st. And so that saved almost $9,700. And so then when you add in the community grants, and again, this is without Callidium, you added in the community grants that totaled $1,591,912. You increase the tax rate to 53.48, and so that gives you your additional tax revenue of $1,582,113, and it gets you to this budget of $590,786,518. And that's really what option A is. Option B, before I go into the budget ordinance, it keeps everything, everything is the same at the top. And really, the only difference with option B is it's adding Callidium in at the $225,000 and increasing the tax rate to 53.52. It provides a little bit, provides really an additional $225,000 of tax revenue, and moves the budget up to $591,011,518. And so that's the difference between option A and option B is the community grant difference and the tax rate between 53.48 and 53.52. With that being said, I can walk through the budget ordinance and highlight the differences if that is okay with everybody.
Sure.
The budget ordinance for FY26 looks slightly different than prior years, as some sections have been shifted around. Again, this is in part due with our, as a result of our work with Jana. It was one of her first recommendations on our budget ordinance was to move the tax levy up front to really set the property tax rate, because without the property tax rate, it's we really don't have the revenue that we need to operate. And so section 1 sets out the tax levy. And so again, in option A, it's at 53.48 for each $100. It's based on a tax base from the May 1st estimate of $65,716,819,914 and the estimated collection rate of 99.29%. In option B, you can see the changes to 53.52. Everything else stays the same. It's the same assessed value estimate, and it's the same collection rate. It's really just the difference between 53.48 and 53.52. Section 2 is where we set out the revenue and appropriated fund balance for FY26. And again, the difference between A and B is the taxes in option A are set at 463, 420, 244. Again, taxes would include property taxes, sales taxes, occupancy tax, and maybe and a couple of very small, much smaller taxes. But that is Option A. Option B, again, it's $225,000 more at 463, 645, 244. The other revenue sources all remain the same. And again, the difference would be your 590, 786, 518 versus 591, 011, 518. Section 3 is really where we provide the amounts that are appropriated for each department in FY26. And so that goes on through the first, or the next couple of pages. And there's really no difference in this first page at all, or the second page. The third page is where you would see a difference, because again, in option A, we're at $1,591,812 for community grants. And in option B, it is at $1,816,812. So 225,000 more. And again, the appropriation total is 225,000. There's a difference of $225,000. Section 4 relates to the funding of the school system. And in subsection A of section 4, it basically sets out, it requires the school system to receive approval from the Board of Commissioners if they would like to increase or decrease the amount of appropriations between purpose, function, or project in greater than 25% of the budgeted allocation. And they also need to let us know by October 18th if any of that is based on state or federal funding changes. That this is language that has been in our budget ordinance for several years. And so it's really just laying out that if they are going to amend their budget, increase appropriations somewhere more than 25%, if they're going to transfer appropriations more than 25%, they need to let us know. 4B relates to teacher supplements, and again indicates that the baseline for teacher supplements was the $19,798,498, and then also and that Article 46 should not supplant that number. It also gives a projection of Article 46 for FY26 of $19,741,068, which totals supplement total or supplement allocation of $39,539,566. And it also has some reconciliation language there that says we will again reconcile if revenue comes in greater than what we budgeted, we will provide that to the school system, and if it comes in lower, we would ask the school system to return funds, as we've done since Article 46 began being levied. Section 4C is basically requiring the school system to provide quarterly reports on teacher supplement payments, including those funded by Article 46. And then Section D is some new language where we are saying that the county may reduce payments to the school system if there are amounts owed to the county by the school system, for whatever reason. It could be SROs or school nurses or any other service that we kind of help with them on that. Sections, 5, 6, and 7 relate to 3 of our special revenue funds: the Law Enforcement Equitable Distribution Fund, the 911 Emergency Telephone System Fund, and the Moser Special Revenue Fund. Those are 3 different funds. Those are 3 different funds that we budget on an annual basis, and those are just they're always set out in the budget ordinance to show those amounts. Section 8 is it provides the estimated revenues and expenditures for our employee health benefit internal service fund, and you can see that's balanced at $42,437,405. So That's something that, again, has been in our budget ordinance every year, but again, just lays out those revenues and expenditures. Section 9 is a little bit more developed than prior years, which is our County Capital Improvement Projects Fund. And so, as you'll recall, that was adopted by the board, this board on May 22nd. And there's been significant discussion of this at our winter work session, as well as at our detailed budget presentation. You saw really everything that's in here was what we had discussed about how we were going to fund projects in FY26 for our capital plan. And again, just to be clear, in option A and option B, all of this is the same. Everything from the special revenue funds that we were discussing all the way through here has been the same. Section 10 relates to contingency and states that those funds should only be used for unanticipated fiscal requirements that are affecting continuing operations. And as a reminder, the FY26 budget has $500,000 included for contingency. Section 11 is the authority to execute contracts and agreements, and it basically provides the chairman of the board, the county manager or their designee, the authority to execute necessary documents, agreements that are set out in these different subsections. If there are contracts, agreements, or amendments that don't fall into these categories, we would bring them back to the board for approval. But again, this is essentially contracts that are over $50,000 would require board approval. But it allows the manager to sign off on grant agreements, contracts less than $50,000, leases less than $50,000, and so on and so forth. None of this language has changed from prior years. This has been included in the budget ordinance for the past several years, and there were no changes to this section. It just looks a little bit different, but no changes in verbiage at all. Section 12 is a new section. This deals with prior year encumbrances. And so what this does is it says that funds that are encumbered at the end of this fiscal year, as of June 30th, 2025, as reflected in the year-end audit financial statement that Terry will provide, will be appropriated to this year to allow us to close out those projects or those contracts. Section 13 relates to compensation and allowances of elected officials, and it basically says that the sheriff and the register of deeds salaries would be adjusted effective July 1st based on the average performance adjustment of 4.37%. Again, the compensation for the board remains the same as the FY25 compensation. And then again, the compensation for the school system, the school board would be equivalent to 75% of the county commissioner's salaries for respective positions. Section 14 really provides that the sheriff's office cannot exceed 595 full-time positions and 24 part-time positions, and the total number of their sworn full-time positions cannot be more than 291, and then the total number of full-time positions in the Register of Deeds office cannot be more than 21. And so again, this is where the board has that authority to set the number of positions in both of those offices. Section 15 would be different between A and B, but really just because of what the overall tax rate is. But this is what is setting, we set our debt leveling tax rates at. And so we were, if you recall, before the revaluation, our debt leveling tax rate was really 11.35 cents. And after the FY26 budget, it will be 8.15 cents. And so it is setting the debt leveling rate for the education debt leveling plan at 2.7 cents, the library debt leveling plan 0.4 cents, the 2016 public improvement at 4.35 cents, and the courthouse debt leveling plan at 0.7 cents. Again, the only difference between option A and option B is that in option A, we are showing the 5348 overall, and option B is showing 5352. The other rates, the 8.15 cents for debt leveling is the same whether the tax rate is going to be 5348 or 5352. Okay. Section 16 allows the county to levy license taxes authorized by law, and basically it just says that these are shown in the budget document in the appendix. And so we really don't have very many. There's maybe just 2 or 3. And so that language has been in the budget ordinance for several years. But again, those are laid out in the budget document itself in the appendix. Section 17 sets the tax rate, or the tax levy for the fire and the fire rescue protection districts. All the district rates have been lowered essentially to revenue neutral, while the countywide overlay rate is increased. And so, again, it sets the tax rate, again, lowering all of the tax rates for all of the districts except for the overlay rate, which is increasing. Provides for the revenue that will be generated out of the districts, how much fund balance they would like to use, the total appropriation, and then what our sales tax transfer is to the general fund based on the ad valorem method of sales tax allocation. Section 18 publishes the county's federal procurement policy, micro purchase threshold. We started including this in the adopted budget ordinance a few years ago around the time ARPA came around in order to comply with Treasury regulations. And there's essentially an annual certification of our federal procurement policy micro purchase threshold. And so nothing is changing here in this language at all. And it is the same between option A and option B. Here. Section 19 relates to our grantee organization agreements. And again, it states that the county's first priority is to provide service and functions which counties are required by law to provide, and cautions organizations that continued funding is not indefinite. And again, we include that language in agreements, and we will include it again in the FY26 agreements. Section 20 states that the fee schedule is shown in the budget document, is established effective July 1st. Again, that's in the appendix of the recommended book, and it will be in the adopted in the appendix of the adopted budget as well, setting the different fees for services. Section 21 states that the county manager is directed to implement the county pay plan, and that is attached in attachment B. And that's a separate, so in your A and B, I think the pay plan is in the option A paperclip. If option B is adopted, you would just move the county pay plan over there. It doesn't change either way.
And I did just want to note that there were no changes to the pay plan. We just attached what we currently have since it's part of the budget ordinance.
Correct. And then section 22 lists 4 board-directed initiatives. The first one, these are things that Chantel and other staff have heard throughout the budget process. So number 1 is to collaborate with the Winston-Salem Police Department, the Kernersville Police Department, and the Sheriff's Office to explore potential consolidation and cost savings related to the Axon contract as well as the Real-Time Intelligence Center. Number 2 is to continue efforts to address our fire service equity and establish a fire commission, so basically continuing the work that Kyle has been working on this year. Number 3, advance the county's capital improvement plan by identifying sustainable funding strategies and incorporating needs of the school system and Forsyth Tech. And then number 4, develop recommendations to amend the county's existing fund balance policy to ensure we have sufficient resources to meet cash flow needs, fund operations, provide funds for potential emergencies, and satisfy bond rating agency AAA standards and local government commission compliance or guidance.
And the one thing I'll say about this section, because it's been in the budget ordinance previously, we left it in here, but it's certainly something the board may want to consider. Now that we have a goals document, we're going to be working on incorporating initiatives into that document, as well as possibly even my own work plan. So we'll keep it here if you're amenable, but maybe next year we can look at possibly placing it somewhere else.
And then section 23 just states that the ordinance will be effective July 1st, 2025. The next page is attachment A, and so again, you would have a difference between attachment A and attachment, or I'm sorry, option A and option B. In option A, you'll see that a list of community grants. It's really just all community grants. And you'll see that there is no Callidium. In option B, you can see Callidium is added at the $225,000 level. So, and then again, attachment B is the pay plan. And you have that, it was kind of paperclip to your option A. And so I did not print it out twice though, so. And that's really a run through. I know it's kind of fast, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to run through them.
Any questions for Kyle?
I do have one question, Kyle. Maybe our county manager can assist with that, but when she made the recommendation excluding the community grants, we were at a tax rate plus the increase of what?
So our tax rate was 53.24. It went up to 53.48 without Callidium, and it goes to 53.52 with Callidium.
Okay, thank you.
Kyle, so neither A or B is the manager's recommendation, correct?
Correct. The manager's recommendation did not have the community grants, and so neither one has that. That's correct.
Thank you.
Additional questions for Kyle? All right. Do we have a motion for A or B?
I do have an alternative motion. I am willing to support option A, which includes most of the community grants, if we are also willing to include a tax rate increase for public schools. Thus, my alternative motion would be to add 2-cent tax increase to help with the 2026 school district budget that will be continuously plagued by debt.
So we have a motion to approve option A with and include with that a 2-cent property tax increase. Is there a second to that motion? Not hearing one, that motion fails. Is there another?
Chairman, yes, I'd like to make a substitute motion as well, that we adopt and move option B first, please.
Motion to adopt option B. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilson. Is there any discussion?
Well, I would just like to say that I cannot support the motion because it's going against our ordinance that we all voted on last year on the community grants, which says if it's not guaranteed every year and they should not expect it to be every year, and this is certainly not a year for the grants. I appreciate the work they do. I appreciate what they do for the community, but I agree with our manager's budget.
Other comments? Yes.
I have no comments at this point, but if this motion passes, I'd like to make a few comments.
All righty, any further discussion?
I do have a couple of comments. So I will not be able to support a budget that does not take into consideration support of obviously that will be a very challenging year next year, 2026, for public school. Of course, I think our school district, and we all know, stands at a crossroads, and our public schools here in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, we already know is underfunded. And this is just propounding an issue that we already have. So, I continue to stand humbly before the other county commissioners to ask that we invest in public schools here in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. And that is because a slight tax increase right now could offset possibly a scenario where in our community, we do not even have the ability to collect taxes because no one wants to be here in Forsyth County, because without a strong public school, families and businesses will not stay. So I ask and implore the county commissioners to consider a small inconvenience for just 1 year in order for us to ideally put our public school system back on the right fiscal path, so that we can continue on as the 4th largest school district in the state of North Carolina and not drop to the 10th or the 26th, the 50th, so forth and so on. I really see this as a sliding slope of what could happen to our public schools. And so with that being said, I think that lastly, based on my calculations, and someone who's better at math could do this, but if we were to go up 2 cents from 53 to 55 cents, if we were looking at the median value of a home in Forsyth County, I think the county manager said it was $279,000, and I'm going to do simple dollar math versus percentage increase. It appears that it would be a difference. If you were paying per month your tax bill, it would be, well, let me just say this. At 53 cents, it would be $1,478. At 55 cents, it would be $1,534. So if you were paying per month, you would be at 53 cents, $123 a month. If you were paying per month with a 55 cent increase, you would be paying $127 a month. So that's just a $4 increase to save public schools. And then if we were looking at District A, because the constituents in District A definitely, entrust me to try to make the best decisions possible, we would be looking at a median value of homes in District A at $172,300, which would be a yearly, at 53 cents, a yearly tax bill at $913.19. And at 55 cents, it would be $947.65, which is about a $34 difference. And so if you were paying your tax bill per month at the 53 cent tax rate, it would be $76 a month. And then at the 55 cent tax rate, it would be about $79 a month. And that would be about a $3 difference in order to save public school here in Forsyth County. So again, I continue to ask the county commissioners to be very considerate in a slight tax rate increase to save public schools here in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County.
I'd like to make 2 responses to that comment. The first is that a 2 cent tax increase will not save the Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools.
Nowhere
And in
close.
fact, the efforts at this point, at the level of dollars we're talking about, which may in fact be more, that we're going to have some reliance through the state of North Carolina and the Department of Public Instruction, because schools are authorized and basically under their jurisdiction. Now, the issue of underfunding, as I have commented several times before, any way you want, you can look at funding in a lot of different ways, but in local per pupil funding, top 4 largest counties in this state, urban counties, we are number 3 in that list out of 4, and we're all within just a couple $100 from top to bottom. So if we are underfunding, so is Wake County, and so is Mecklenburg, and so is Guilford. So I think as a local effort, we by the way, that was not the case 5 years ago. And we have actually made a lot of progress, and we had the least ability to pay in terms of tax base. So I do not want to let it be said that we have local dollars underfunding public schools. And the solution to the financial deficit is, I'm afraid, beyond us. And we'll have to, there is a long future ahead. We're not finished with that. I'd say probably if 2 cents would finish it, I might have to do some entertaining of that thought, but that's not where we are. No. Any further discussion of the motion and the second on the floor?
Yes, Chairman, I would just like to say a few things relative to the community grants. I asked the question about our county manager relative to the community grants because it's been so political for over the last couple of years. They say it's political, but I'm always going to be all things children and all things seniors. I believe that in these community grants, we have diversity, equity, and inclusion. With a tax increase for those individuals that cannot afford, first of all, a tax increase, and we've maintained that for the last 3 years here in this county. Can't say that for the city, and I think that many people misunderstand who's raising the taxes, and there is going to be a significant increase in terms of the city when you see that. So with that being said, I think we have equity in terms of, I want to make sure that, our sheriff is here today. We talk about the crime. We talk about the children needing things to do. We have Crosby Scholars. We have Harry veterans. And we have the Shepherd Centers, which are going to be feeding our seniors Meals on Wheels. So I'm finding that my vote today will have balance. With regards to all. With regards to the schools, I told you that I have been hopeful, but I have dismay when it comes to what's happening and what's going to happen. Things are still being unveiled in terms of realizing where the school systems are. And we are working diligently. You will hear the work that the Forsyth County Commissioners have done and what we are doing to try to address the issues. But sometimes, like I said, things will unveil over the next couple of days where you will see it's not us. We have tried. An increase in taxes, again, for District A, my constituents, it just won't work. And I'm hopeful that the community grants, which are not, in my opinion, political, they take care of children, seniors, and our veterans, and that's important to me. I'd like to address one more thing since I have the mic today. As far as the community grants with Triad Cultural Arts, it's been told to me that this is based upon friendships and likes and all types of things. And I will tell you that I will never get caught up in a conflict of interest in anyone. We support the North Carolina Black Repertory Company that brings millions into this community. Cheryl Harry is a church member of mine, and she is my husband's neighbor. So with that being said, there was no way that I could get 4 votes and then vote with my heart as far as cultural arts was concerned. So I know that there's been plenty of conversation around that, and I just wanted to share my thoughts around that, and so that the community can know and be very transparent in that. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Last call for comments.
I do want to just make a couple of comments in response to what Commissioner McDaniel has said, because I am very supportive of the county's ability to extend support out into our community to really, be able to help us to do what we have legislatively been charged to do, and to extend what, our public school district also does to support students and families. So that's not the issue. I think, by way of one of our main duties as a county commission to, of course, make sure that we are absolutely supporting public schools. And I know that we do the best job that we can here in Forsyth County based on, our tax, revenue coming in. And then, of course, with our capital projects, the citizens definitely all in as it relates to trying our best to support public schools. But I think that it is nationally known that North Carolina does not properly fund public school education, which obviously indirectly and directly impacts us here in Forsyth County. So, I don't think anyone is, solely looking at the county to relieve what we know is very true, that public school is not properly funded in North Carolina. And so for me, a slight tax rate increase is a way to help. I didn't say it would solve the problem, but to do nothing and not try to at least try to accommodate some of the blow for next year, I'm sure, for the school district. I think it is, it's concerning for me as a citizen, nevertheless, as a county commission, right? So I am, again, just hoping that this commission and this community can understand and fully appreciate that to support public school is to sustain one of the key pillars of any community. And the last point that I will make as it relates to Triad Cultural Arts, I did sit on the board for Triad Cultural Arts 2 or 3 years ago. Of course, there is a shotgun house project that the city of Winston-Salem has supported, and it is, ideally an economic engine. And I appreciate Commissioner McDaniel explaining that she would have tried to get 4 votes had it not been, she deemed it a conflict of interest, but thank goodness the law doesn't, say it's a conflict. But I understand that if you live next to somebody, a church member, it could appear to be a conflict of interest. But I think that the law, if the law dictates that it isn't, then to me, it is a fair lobby. And I would have loved to support adding on Triad Cultural Arts as we added on other community organizations that were not approved by staff because some of the commissioners deemed it to be so, because we have the final say-so. Thank you.
All in favor? Are we ready to vote?
Could I say one thing, please?
Sure.
I want to explain my position on the community grants. It has absolutely nothing to do with being political. Our new manager went through our budget like I've never seen it, and she did an outstanding job, and she asked our departments to cut their budgets. Our departments found $7 million to cut from the budget, and the reason we need cuts is that we're trying our best to restore our fund balance and not lose our AAA bond rating, which would affect us and each one of you all. So that's my reason for, I would vote for the manager's recommended budget, but she left out community grants because we adopted an ordinance that said they're not guaranteed every year. You do not need to sit there, these community grant recipients, and think that you're going to get the same thing every year. It's impossible. So that's my reason for voting against the community grants.
Now, all in favor of option B that has been motioned, has been a motion and a second, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed by like sign.
No.
So we have, motion carries 4-3. All right. Yes, comment you want to make afterwards.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe that the budget that we just passed is fiscally responsible, it pays for itself, and it maintains essential community services, including public education, public safety, and public health. Among other things, we are providing $180 million for the public schools, the most ever here in Forsyth County. We are adding reporting requirements, particularly to teacher supplements, to ensure that that part of the money that we're providing goes to the teachers where it belongs on a timely basis. We have avoided cuts to services for seniors, children, and veterans in need of help by reversing the decision to zero out community grants. Cuts that would have happened if we had not added back in the community grants that we added. And we've increased law enforcement staff to protect public safety at the request of the sheriff. This is an extremely challenging financial environment we're operating in. In that environment, we have cut our property tax rate from the previous rate by over 14 cents. The most we could do without relying on an increase in debt or cutting critical public services. That has helped us to reduce the impact on taxpayers of the much higher average market home values shown by the countywide property reappraisal. I do not believe that we could have cut the rate further and still met our responsibilities. And by the way, we did need to cut the rate because the property tax, as it is required to be done under North Carolina state law, ends up being one of the most regressive taxes around. That is, it has a higher relative impact on lower income families, and it has the highest impact on fixed income families, especially seniors. So we did need to do everything we could to reduce that impact. If, for example, we had added 2 cents as a subsidy for the schools in addition to the funding that we're providing, that would have produced less than $14 million. Whereas the budget shortfall that we know about to date in the school spending for just this fiscal year that we're wrapping up is $42 million. And since auditing continues, there may well be other shoes to drop. It would not have fixed the problem, but it would have added to the disproportionate burden of low-income and fixed-income households. This is the most challenging process of adopting a budget that I have participated in 22 years of local public elected service, 19 years on the Winston-Salem City Council, and now 3 on the Forsyth County Commission. I appreciate the hard work of all my colleagues here who have been thoughtful about their approaches with different opinions as where we should end up, as well as our outstanding staff, which found places that we could have efficiency savings and implemented them without cuts to critical public service. And I am appreciative of the input and involvement of all the citizens who have taken part in this process. All of that has improved the final product. I believe that the end result is fiscally responsible, is sensitive to the impact on taxpayers, and meets our responsibilities to do what we can to provide critical public services at the local level. Thank you.
All righty. I will adjourn the special meeting and call to order the regular meeting. So welcome to the regular meeting. Citizens who are interested in participating in the public session portion of the meeting, you may do so by telephone, 336-422-1200. That's 336-422-1200. and you will be placed on hold until the public session begins. And members of the audience who are interested in participating in the public session portion, please fill out a speaker card and return to our clerk, Ashley Matthews. You could actually even do that as we speak. Before we address the items on the agenda, I do want to talk about the letter to the response to the school board. And I have the letter, in fact, it is multiple authors that have contributed to this letter as we have kind of worked on it. And this is a response to Deanna Kaplan, Chair of the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Board of Education. And I will just read it. There are a couple blanks based on some things that were not known at that time, but excuse me. It says, Dear Chair Kaplan, as a follow-up to the Board of Education's vote on May 27th, 2025, and Superintendent McManus's subsequent letter dated May 29th, 2025, requesting a one-time payment of $32.1 million to cover state and local budget shortfalls for the FY 2025 school year, please accept this letter as the county's formal response. The commissioners reviewed the letter during our public meetings on June the 5th, 2025, and by majority vote approved the contents of this letter. The Forsyth County Board of Commissioners will not provide the requested one-time payment of $32.1 million. Forsyth County has maintained a AAA bond rating for nearly 30 years, enabling us to borrow at the lowest possible interest rates and provide significant capital funding for public schools. The commissioners have not increased taxes in 3 years, and during the last 2 years, we have used fund balance in order to prevent a tax increase. Our financial advisor, consultants, and bond rating agencies have emphasized that strengthening the county's fund balance is essential to preserving the county's AAA bond rating. Therefore, using $32 million from our fund balance to cover Winston-Salem-Forsyth County's budget shortfall would compromise the county's long-term financial stability. In an effort to reduce the need to use our fund balance, we have reduced our budget during the current year, and the FY 26 operating budget is only 0.9% above the FY 25 budget. In addition, the board approved a blank, which will fill in our property tax rate, above the calculated revenue neutral rate. When our new rate is applied to the median value home for Forsyth County, the tax increase will be nearly 23%. And that's 23% over a house valued at the new value from last year to this year's rate. The commissioners are not, that was my editorial comment, the commissioners are not willing to increase taxes beyond this amount in light of a similar tax increase proposed by the city of Winston-Salem. Additionally, it has come to our attention that Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Schools has unpaid obligations to the county for services including school resource officers, school nurses, fuel, and lease payments. These unpaid invoices total over $5 million. We are willing to work with the school system to establish a reasonable repayment plan for these outstanding charges. The commissioners remain committed to supporting our public schools within the county's financial capacity and statutory obligations. Commissioners approved the Board of Education's FY 26 requested funding level of over $180 million as outlined in the superintendent's May 29, 2025 letter. During the unprecedented financial crisis, we will continue working with you, the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and the North Carolina General Assembly as efforts continue towards restoring fiscal sustainability, accountability, and improved financial management of public education funds. Sincerely, our board. I'd like to have, if there could be a motion to adopt that letter, if someone so chooses. I'll be happy to make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wisenhunt. Is there any discussion of the letter? Commissioner Bessie.
I think that the school board has made a specific request, and they are entitled to a clear answer. This provides a clear answer with explanation about what we don't feel we can responsibly do and what we will do everything in our power to help by doing.
Other comments?
I do have just a couple of comments. So I do agree that it is not plausible for the county commissioners to support the $32.1 million current ask in lieu of trying to take money out of our fund balance, which I think we have, stated over and over again as it relates to the effect on our bond rating. So that part of the letter I do support. Of course, the component about the tax increases there, and of course, I think that it is a cost and a burden that maybe not tomorrow, but down the road, if we don't get a handle on trying to figure out how to support public school, it will be our problem collectively, whether you have children or not in this county. And I do want to say lastly, because I think it is important that no matter if we, have increased the tax rate based on, the county manager or any of the recommendations of the county, there are relief options for citizens that have burden in paying taxes. And I think that we have been remiss in not explaining that if you're a senior citizen, if you're a veteran, you and also just have issues with, plight in, any economic income coming to your home, you can call the county and get assistance. I think for most of us, we are definitely more concerned about our senior citizens and their ability to pay, since they have a lot of times limited income fixed. And so in talking to our proposed nominee for the new county tax assessor, she was very diligent in explaining that with one of the options for senior citizens, they could actually be approved to pay only half of what the tax bill would be. So I think that there isn't a zero-sum scenario as it relates to citizens that may have a challenge paying the tax rate. I think that we need to be very proactive about sharing with our citizens that no matter, again, what the tax rate is, if you have a problem paying for your taxes, there are options, and you should reach out to the tax assessor here in Forsyth County. Thank you.
Other comments?
Yes, I have one. My interpretation of this letter is this, and it's to be clear about if the other questions is asked later on of us. I'm just speaking only for me. The 32.1 million requested has been denied, and also to the point of the unpaid money for some services, $5 million, included, I think, the school resource officers, nurses, fuel for service vehicles, I don't think for buses, and maybe some other things. And it specifically says that the board is willing to work with the school system to let them pay it back in some way. And to me, that is exactly that, to pay it back. It's not forgiving it. And that's my interpretation. And anything else that comes up is a totally separate matter for me.
Any other comments? All in favor of approving the letter to be sent as written, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by like sign?
No.
Motion passes 6-1. All righty. Very briefly, Commissioner Woodbury mentioned our new tax assessor, which is literally here today, and she currently lives in Durham and will be moving here. But just what an opportunity to introduce her and let our county manager just identify her and make a very brief introduction, and then we will get to Chris Murphy and the public hearing on the plan tonight.
Mr. Chairman, can we adopt the resolution first? So we have a resolution appointing the tax assessor collector.
Thank you. Like a motion, we have a motion by Commissioner Bessie. Is there a second?
Second.
second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion?
I do just want to put on record that since this is one of the positions that we all have to, as commissioners, vote on, I think that it would be best in the future if all of us are part of the process to hire, because I think that it would be less than authentic for any of us to vote for someone that we have not been a part of the process to directly hire.
Other comments?
Yes, I'd like to say that I had an opportunity to sit in with this candidate. I had an opportunity to sit in with both candidates. And one thing that I appreciate for both of them is that they both listened. And I appreciate that. Knowing that the district that I represent, which is District A, needs a leader that will listen and that will walk them through processes in terms of their needs or information, and I believe that this candidate will be able to do that. So thank you.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And
Now you can introduce.
Yep, I would love to introduce Miss Amanda Markle, if you want to come to the podium, ma'am. Amanda is currently the Deputy Tax Assessor in Durham County and has over 20 years of experience in tax. She holds a bachelor's degree and possesses numerous professional designations and certifications, including Certified County Assessor, Assessment Administration Specialist, Personal Property Appraisal, Real Property Appraiser, and a whole lot of other stuff. We are so excited and delighted that she has chosen Forsyth County. I'd love for everyone to welcome Ms. Markle, and I will ask you if you'd like to say a few words.
Well, you don't realize how low this is, do you? There we go. Thank y'all very much for having me today. I greatly appreciate it, to everyone up here as well as everyone back here. I look forward to serving Forsyth County. I look forward to working with each and every one of you, and I really do appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Markle will begin on July 7th. And so I do also want to take a moment of privilege to thank our Deputy Tax Assessor Collector, Mike Pollock, who is serving in the interim role, and I know that the two of them will make a fantastic team. So look forward to working with both of you.
Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Chair?
One other thing, sorry.
You know, I hate to ask you to start early, but between you and Mike, it's entirely possible that the law regarding senior and veterans exemptions has been updated since I last checked on it. But could you, for folks that may be listening and may wish to apply for, a break, what are the requirements and what are the limitations?
So there are 3 programs that you can apply for. They're all under the same application. So the first one is considered the elderly disabled exclusion. To qualify, you have to be 65 years of age or totally and permanently disabled as of January 1st. And your income for the prior year, so we look at last year's income, must be less than $37,900.
And does that apply to the entire assessed value of the resident, no matter what it is?
So it will exclude 50% of the appraised value or $25,000, whichever is greater, for properties that are the house and up to 1 acre of land. If you have excess of 1 acre, it is taxed at the full value, so up to 1 acre of building site.
All right, so basically, since very few of us live in a house valued at $25,000 or less, basically you are eligible for the amount of the break for up to half of your home value.
Yes, that is the most common, yes.
I assume that this wouldn't apply to folks, sadly, who are renting and paying part of the property tax through their rent.
Unfortunately, no, you do have to own the home.
Okay. And what about veterans?
Okay, the veteran, we have the disabled veteran exclusion. To qualify, you have to be a totally and permanently disabled veteran or a unmarried surviving spouse of a veteran that may have passed. You have a form that would be filled out by the VA that would certify all of that and also certify that they were discharged they were discharged honorably or under honorable circumstances. To qualify for that, you also have to own the property as of January 1st. That would exclude $45,000 from the value of the property when we calculate the tax bill. That's regardless of the value. You might have a $100,000 valued property, we'll exclude $45,000. It might be $500,000, we'll exclude $45,000 at this time.
Right. So bottom line, as I take away from that is, it's definitely worth applying for in either case, but sadly, it doesn't totally insulate you from the impacts of higher property rates.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I have received a note that we take a brief break. Sorry, Chris, and there'll be an opportunity. We'll try about a 10-minute recess. Thank you. I think we might have exceeded our advertised break time. My apologies for that. Now, we are back in session, and the first item on the agenda is a public hearing on the zoning petition of Kernersville Little League Baseball from HBS to RS40. This is zoning docket F1659, and Chris Murphy, our Planning and Development Services Director, is going to give us an overview, and this is our second review of this, so thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the County Commissioners. This is a request of Kernersville Little League to rezone approximately 6.89 acres of property located at the western terminus of Stunstall Road, north of Sahibi Road. It's a general use rezoning request, and the request is to go from HBS, which is Highway Business Special Use. The use that was approved back in 1987 was for commercial recreation services outdoor, and it was for athletic fields. And the request is to go from that use, that request, to general use RS40, residential building, single family, 40,000 square foot lot size. This is the subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area Plan map. You see that it is located within GMA 5, the Rural Growth Management Area, and it is located very close to the Guilford County line there, but it is within Forsyth County. This is the subject property highlighted in yellow. Again, it's zoned HBS. It was rezoned back in 1987. It is in a residential subdivision. As I mentioned last time, I believe it was a Mr. Parrish built this athletic field for softball competitions back in the 1970s, and it became more and more popular, and it became a zoning violation. And the zoning violation led to the property being requested for rezoning, and there was significant opposition to that rezoning back in 1987. But the Board of County Commissioners in 1987 did approve this rezoning by a 3-2 vote. I bring all of that up to on this image here. You see again, it's zoned HBS, and it's surrounded by RS40 and ag property. But going a little bit further out than that, within a mile to a mile and a half from this, the perimeter of this, all the property out there is owned either RS 20, 30, 40, ag, or manufactured home. So it's all residential, with the exception of there is an IP zone property for Piney Grove Elementary School. So again, a very homogeneous area of residential zone. And that's what they're requesting to go back to is to go to RS40 zoning. This is the subject property outlined in yellow on the countywide aerial imagery. You do see, again, it has had very little use over the last few years. According to Kernersville Little League, who I believe there are some representatives here from them, but I believe it's maybe used a time or two for practices over the last several years, but there haven't been any competitions out here in a significant time. As I mentioned earlier, this is located within GMA 5, the rural policy, the rural growth management plan area, and as such, there are no parcel specific recommendations in the rural policy area. The Northeast Rural Area Study does generally recommend large lot residential within the immediate area, and again, that is what they are requesting with the RS40 zoning request. Here are some images. This is looking west into the subject property from Stunstall Road. You see the driveway coming in. As it goes to the right of the image, that is a parking area, and that is looking into a behind the sign is a like picnic pavilion type area, and then the field is beyond that in the open area. This is another image of the fencing, that pavilion area. This is again looking west into the subject property. This is looking east along Stunstall Road. The subject property is to the rear of this, so you're looking to the southeast. And this is looking north from Sahibi Road on to Stunstall Road. So again, you would travel down Stunstall Road to the subject property. Again, that's where this commercial recreation activity has been going on since it was approved in 1987. Again, they are looking to rezone this back for residential use. The request is consistent with the general recommendations of both Legacy 2030 and the Northeast Rural Area Study. The request would rezone the property to a zoning district that is consistent with the surrounding zoning and land use pattern. The request will allow for the redevelopment of the site to compatible single-family and agricultural land uses, and the request returns the property to a zoning classification consistent with its pre-1987 rezoning to highway business special use. This was heard by the Planning Board at their May 8th, 2025 public hearing. There was one speaker in opposition with concerns centered on the uncertainty of the request and the perceived lack of notice. Following the public hearing, the Planning Board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this request to the Board of County Commissioners. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Any clarification from Chris?
Is there any kind of timetable from the petitioner about this? If it's rezoned, there's no water, sewer?
You would probably need to ask them. Again, as RS-40, it would allow for development without water and sewer based on the lot size. They would have to get septic, well permits. One of the other limiting factors, even though this is 6.8 acres, unless they did a major subdivision and had it off of a publicly maintained public street, they would be limited on the number of lots they could cut anyway. But again, all of that would be further down the road. I'm not exactly sure. I believe the Kernersville Little League just wants to sell the property.
Are the houses and the lots, and we saw a few houses and the lots that are shown in the map, do they have, all of them have individual well water, or are they on other extended water line?
I'm unfamiliar with the well situation out there, whether there is public water out here or whether they are on wells. Perhaps, I know one of the person who spoke in opposition is here and she lives out here. She may be able to answer that question. I'm not sure if any of the other folks that are here, they may live out there as well. I'm not sure.
All right. Other questions, Chris? All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, and speakers will have up to 15 minutes total to speak in favor of this request, and up to 15 minutes total to speak in opposition. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? All right. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? And if you would, just come forward, and if you'll give us your name and address. And let me ask this question. Are there others that wish to speak in opposition? I was going to sort of manage the time if need be. It looks like if you need 15 minutes, you have it. There you go.
Hopefully I'll be able to explain in less than 15 minutes. My name is Chantal Mullen. My address is 9219 Sahabi Road, Kernersville, North Carolina, 27284. I did attend the previous meeting, and the main crux of the problem, and I've talked to the majority of the people on the street at this point, there seems to be a large mystery as to what's actually going to be on that property, and it's drawing a lot of concern. I live on the Sahabi portion of the street. Sahabi comes from Stegall, and then Tunstall comes back to that property. We're talking about a pretty rural area that basically, in a snowstorm, we don't see a plow truck. Not that we have many storms, but this is not a well-maintained road, Sahabi in itself, and then Tunstall is actually gravel and dirt. In a portion of the documentation that was submitted online for this change, it said that they could put in up to 7 homes on that site, which draws a little bit of concern considering the number of trips, additional trips that would put on that road. It is not a site that could entertain a commercial dwelling or something like that, merely because of the entrance and exit. There's only one way in, one way out. It's a very quiet road. The majority of the people on this road have lived there years. I'm one of the newer residents. I've been there for about 8 years. So we really enjoy our quiet area. Apparently, and I had hoped that the realtor and potentially somebody else was going to show up today so that we could ask for some more clarification, but I don't see them here. apparently on the last page of the document that was submitted online, a letter April 21st, 2025, that was sent out. I don't know who it was sent out to, but my home is actually in the affected area. So I got the other two letters from the government, whatever entity that was, right? And I have them here. The original meeting notice and the Forsyth County notice of pending rezoning action. So this other letter that was apparently from the Realtor, I have never received, neither has my neighbor. Also, and not that it really has anything to do that you can possibly change right now, but 2 p.m. is a really hard time for all of us who work to attend a meeting like this. Again, I know that probably doesn't have anything to do with you guys. However, that is very prohibitive for people to come in and have their voices heard, which is why I went and talked to many of the neighbors, and I can submit this for you. It's the ones that were home that I could get to that have large concerns about what is actually going to happen on this property. I'm not sure who needs to take that. As to the water and sewer, we are all on septic and wells. If you were to put in up to 7 homes on that parcel, that would definitely affect our wells. If you know anything about wells, they're connected by the aquifers and all of that nice stuff. And basically, whenever you drill a new well, that is going to affect our water access. So seeing as all of these things are problems that we're trying to come to terms with, I'm asking that you at least allow us a continuance of this so that we can get some actual information from the Realtor. It seems as though there is a contract already on this property. So that means there is a buyer. We would like to know how this is potentially going to affect us. So at the very least, having talking to everybody in the community, and again, I've also informed everybody on the north portion of the street that didn't get any letters about what was happening, even though their homes and properties will be directly affected just because there's only one way in and one way out. They are all now aware of this. And so that's a lot of the names that are on there. Again, I don't think that you guys have anything to do with the notification system, but it would be a recommendation of mine that if there's only one way in and one way out, and these properties are obviously going to be affected directly by whatever happens to that property, that they should also receive notice, even though that is outside of the ordinance that they followed for giving notification, because it just seems a little not transparent. And one more thing, the sign that was pictured in the zoning sign, one is directly on that property at the end of Stunstall. The other one is at the beginning of Stunstall, which means any of the properties coming in on Sahabi or anybody else on the corner of that main road of Stegall, we never saw that sign. We never saw any of those signs. So effectively, if you didn't live on that road, which to my knowledge, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 properties on that road. Those 4 properties saw it because they had to go buy that sign to get to their homes. Everybody else, I never saw that sign until I got the notice and I went down there and looked. So, I mean, there's a few concerns here. And like I said, so I think what we're asking for is a lot of clarification. It seems like there's information that's known, but that's not been shared. And nobody's here to tell us today. The Realtor's not here today. We can't ask for a meeting. We can't ask for, hey, it would make everyone feel better. There's been rumors, there's one person who wants to retire there, but there's no proof of anything. There's nobody telling us anything. It's, hey, here's a meeting that's hard to attain to come in and ask questions. And it seems a bit, we want transparency, and we just want to know what's going on because we like our quiet area. We like our neighborhood.
Thank you. Maybe Chris could answer at least a question regarding the notice requirements. My memory is 500 feet from the property line. And I don't know what the decision-making is on signs. I'm just curious. I'm curious about that part. I'm pretty sure about the 500 feet.
Yeah, the mail notice is 500 feet from the boundaries of the property, and that's what's actually shown on the map in front of you. That's on the overhead, and that's what the green area is. The sign, the property is required to be posted. There's really no other requirement besides the notice and the property to be posted, but we generally provide lead-in signs, directional signs, for cases, but we do it on a case-by-case basis. If this had been for an intensification of the zoning, we more than likely would have put a sign out at the entrance to Sahibi off of Stegall, but since this was a down zoning going from a highway business commercial type use to a residential use, we felt like generally speaking, under down zoning, it's likely to be controversial, so we did not put a sign out at Stegall. Again, there is no requirement to do anything other than to post the property. And you know, the notification requirement, the 500 foot, is in the ordinance, as is posting the property. State statute only requires that the adjoining property owners be notified and that a sign be posted on the property. It doesn't require the directional signs, and it doesn't require anything beyond adjoining properties.
I have some questions. Chris, would you come forward? I hadn't asked you many questions lately, so I guess I've been saving them for this.
You want me at the podium?
Yeah. I remember the zoning, I just can't remember the vote right off.
I'm not sure whether you voted for it or against it, but it was a 3-2 vote.
I don't know if I remember it, but that part I don't. So I can remember general things. I can't remember all of them in detail anymore. Who is the Kernersville Little League the owner of the property?
Kernersville Little League is the owner of the property, yes.
All right, the road, is it a private road, public road, or an easement?
Sahibi is a public road that has been dedicated, and I believe maintained by NCDOT. I looked at that. I'm 99% sure that it is maintained by NCDOT. Stunstall, there was a subdivision, both Sahibi and Stunstall were part of a subdivision from 1963, and Stunstall was dedicated as a public right-of-way. So it's shown on the plat as a public right-of-way, but there aren't enough houses on it for it to ever have been turned over to the public. And again, there was another phase where this HBS currently is that had more lots on that original subdivision, but it expired. So Stunstall in and of itself is publicly dedicated but privately maintained. And that's where I was getting to earlier. I mean, a couple of things. The request is RS40. And of course, with an RS40, you have to consider the full use. Even if the petitioner was here and they said, we're going to do one house, if they got it approved under RS40 and they could do 5 houses, then they would have that legal right to do so because this is a general use request. I did just want to, that's one of the other things I didn't explain earlier whenever we were talking about the notice.
Okay, well, first off, I recognize the down zoning when it was zoned. I guess what you pointed out earlier, it was a violation to begin with those years ago, and the reason to request then, I guess, were they at that time the Little League, did they own it at then, or the basic thing was that it was being used for sports of some kind?
I'm not sure. My recollection of looking at the deeds was that Kernersville Little League, I think, took ownership of it in around 1990, 1991. It may have been 89, but I believe that Mr. Parrish, in and of itself, may have been the person that requested the rezoning, and he was the person that originally that developed the ball fields.
Well, under the current zoning, as it is now. It seems to me that if somebody wanted to, I don't know what all of the things are that could be allowed under that HBS, but it could be, you don't have to go through them.
Right here.
It could be more intensive than this, the zoning that's being asked for, and I'm guessing that this RS40 is being asked to use for sports. That could be one of the things that could be on this RS40.
Only if it were owned by the public. In other words, if the county purchased the property and wanted to have athletic fields or a park or something there, you could. But that was one of the problems that they ran into and why it had to be rezoned back in 1987, because it was a commercial entity.
Well, if somebody's asking for I'm trying to get to what it can be used for under the RS40 would be residential. And what is the special use part of it? There's the reason for that.
Is there a special use?
Wait a minute, from HBS to RS40.
Yeah, from HBS to RS40, they're requesting general use RS40. I believe in the packet you might have there may be something that lists the uses that are allowed in RS40, and there are some of those uses that are allowed with a special use permit from the Board of Adjustment, but there is no special use district request. This is a general use request to RS40. But it would allow single-family homes. RS40 allows single-family homes. It would allow a public park. It would allow churches. There are things that are allowed by right in RS40, but commercial athletic fields would not be one of those.
Well, see, the lady just appeared that she used the word transparent, and maybe that, I don't know whether she's aware or not aware that the current zoning could be more intensely used than the RS40, I believe.
Yes.
Correct. Whenever it was originally rezoned to B3S, it was for commercial recreation. That has now, that was under the old zoning ordinance, under the UDO, that use translated over to rec services outdoor. And the definition of that is establishments engaged in providing outdoor amusements or entertainment services, including athletic fields private, racing, including track operations, amusement parks, batting cages, go-kart raceway, miniature golf, and golf driving ranges.
Well, okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that this matter be continued to see if some more can be found out about the intended use, and the lady that lives out there try to give. Mr. Attorney, have you got a question?
Yes, I was just going to say intended use would not be relevant here because it's general use rezoning. So it would be any uses would be allowed under RS40.
Well, okay, I'm going to still I'll retract what I first said. I'm going to make a motion to continue the matter until more information can be acquired and from the planning staff and be relayed to this lady or other people that lives on the road. So if what we did the years ago wasn't the best thing to do, like right now, I can't figure out what's the best thing to do. It would seem like to me to downzone it would be the better thing to do, to have less intense
Commissioner level, I'm sorry.
Well, first of all, there's a little procedure issue. I want to second his motion just so we can discuss it. And then we do have a matter, and I'll ask our attorney issue. We're approaching, we've just hit, I think, our 15 minutes for the public hearing closing. So I'm trying to we haven't closed the hearing yet. And so these were questions asked during it. I just want to make sure where we are with our time hasn't been officially closed. And if this motion were to pass, then would we have reopen the hearing at its next date, or is the hearing considered closed?
I would suggest on this one to leave the hearing open.
All right, just want to get.
And I don't know, I believe Mr. Murphy indicated there might be some folks from Kernersville here. Is that right or not?
Apparently, and I know someone that spoke in favor last time is here, but.
I'm really not in favor.
Okay.
There's too much animosity than no transparency there.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, to answer your question, you could close the hearing now, or you could leave it open. It's up to you if you wanted to continue the matter.
So I will ask Commissioner Linville, your motion is to basically continue not only the action, but the hearing and the action together.
And maybe so next time that there may be others that might come forward to offer information. As I said, this is the down zone, and generally that causes a less intense use. Can I use the word intense? You can use worse intense uses.
I'll second that motion, and now we can have some discussion of the motion to continue. Commissioner Bessie first, and I have one to follow that.
I wondered if it might be helpful to continue it to a date certain and hold the public hearing open. That way, when folks leave today, they'd know when tentatively it would be scheduled to come back up.
I would say 30 days. 2 weeks is just a lot of times not enough.
Madam County Commissioner, County Manager, could you tell? Let me just tell us our next. I think the date certain is helpful for planning. I know we have 19th. That's too short. The next meeting after that, because we have a national meeting, but the thing in between, our next meeting is not until July what?
July 24th.
Well, if 2 weeks is a better, the next official meeting, rather than extend it so long, that'd be okay.
So you're saying, are you saying June 19th is okay?
If that's the next
It's either June
meeting,
19th
yes.
or July 24th, right? Okay, I just want to get that if we were doing, and I have on the other, following the discussion part, just kind of, it appears to me that from Commissioner Linville's point, that there has been no interest in any development of any sort relative to that site. The Little League has used it off and on over the last 40 years almost, off and on. No interest in selling commercially and nobody doing it. It appears, based on what we heard, is that there may be a buyer that's interested, and it may be someone who wants to build homes. If that's true, it would seem to me that if this were to pass, continuance, that it would be helpful if that contractor or builder or developer could meet with the neighbors and say, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I'm going to build 6 houses, and I'm going to build 7 houses, and I'm going to do that.
What I want to say, and again, obviously, it's within the board's prerogative to take any action that you deem fit, but to continue it to under the existing situation where you have a general use request for RS40 is not going to provide any concrete answers because it's a general use request. It would be better to approve or deny as is, or basically tell them we're going to table this until you bring us back a special use request with a site plan that shows what you're going to do, but just simply continuing it to get them here because it's not, you can't hold them to that.
You've answered my question. The
request.
correct way to do this would be, we could continue the thing and ask for a special use plan for what would happen on this site.
But in order to do that, it'd have to go all the way back through the planning board.
And it's very expensive.
Well, what does the public hearing part, all I want to do is, today I'm not prepared to make a decision based on what I've heard, and if I can't do anything but acquire information on my own, I'll do that. So I'll be sure this is a little bit unusual, so.
Good question, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Normally, an S designation indicates a site plan, and I haven't seen one. Is there a site plan in the record?
It's not an S designation.
It's not.
It is, HBS.
From HBS
From
to RS.
From HBS, yes. Well,
We don't ever include the original plan.
Okay, is there a site plan? Do you know?
There is, yeah.
All right. I would like to see that whenever this comes up again, please, because then I could at least know whether the existing zoning is more restrictive in reality than the proposed downzoning would be in reality. Because a general rezoning, as you point out, incorporates a long list of ways that it can be used that are not just single-family residential, RS40. The reality of that, just, they could put up to 7 houses on it under the general use zoning, or they could put other things. So we and the interested neighbors would at least know whether the potential for development is actually greater under the supposed downzoning than under the current zoning that seems wildly inappropriate to the location, but the actual impact of what they could do theoretically could be less. And I won't know that until I see the what conditions and site plans specifically apply to it as it is.
Further discussion.
I will vote for the motion just because there's concern, but I can, doing zonings, I do zonings if it was going to affect me, and I can assure you that I'd rather be living beside a residential single family than living beside of a highway business special use any day of the week. But if y'all want to postpone it, that's fine.
I mean, honestly, I would probably feel the same way, but I can understand why the residents would prefer the certainty if in fact there's a greater certainty under the current zoning than the potential alternative uses that are allowed by right in a general use, RS40 zone. And just to have the answer that we can make it, a thumbs up or thumbs down decision on it in 2 weeks. As you, Madam Vice Chair, I'll support Commissioner Linville's motion to give him a chance to investigate.
Yeah, I will too. Let's ready to vote.
All right, good. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. We'll review again on the 19th. Thank you. All righty. Moving forward, item 2. Excuse me. All righty. Let me get back to this thing. Okay, we are ready for a special resolution declaring June 15th as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Forsyth County.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. I'll be reading the resolution declaring June the 15th, 2025 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Forsyth County, North Carolina. Whereas older adults deserve to be treated with dignity and respect to enable them to serve as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and vital participating members of our community. Whereas in 2006, the International Network of the Prevention of Elder Abuse, in support of the United Nations International Plan of Action, proclaimed a day to recognize the significance of elder abuse as a public health and human rights issue. Whereas 2025 marks the 19th annual World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and its recognition will promote a better understanding of abuse and neglect of older adults. Whereas Forsyth County recognizes the importance of taking action to raise awareness, prevent, and address elder abuse. Whereas ageism and social isolation are major causes of elder abuse, and it is a shared responsibility to ensure that proper social structures exist so people can retain community and societal connections, reducing the likelihood of abuse.
Good, I'll second that.
Whereas, sorry, I'm not going to finish. That's all right. I'm a little slow. Whereas Forsyth County Department of Health and Human Services serves to protect older adults experiencing mistreatment, but recognizes that protection against abuse begins with awareness of this issue within our community. And whereas Forsyth County Department of Health and Human Services provides this protection and community awareness through internal partners comprised of public health, social services, behavioral health, and Bridges to Hope as they work collaboratively with our population. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners here recognizes June the 15th, 2025 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Forsyth County and encourages all citizens and community partners to consider how they promote awareness of the issue of elder abuse and support efforts to protect vulnerable adults, elderly adults, that is, adopted this 5th day of June 2025.
We'll second it now.
Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And do we have someone to present to? Had a long wait. Please come forward.
I would just like to say thank you. Y'all have been declaring, you have been declaring World Elder Abuse Awareness Day for June 15th for a number of years now. And we certainly appreciate all of the recognition and the hard work that this department has done. I'd also just like to say I love to see the aspects of the purple, and I see all the purple today. It actually touches my heart. This is something, you know, I've been doing for over 21 years or so and more, and to have that recognition means more than you can ever know. So thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
God has on purple.
Thank you.
I see it. Good. Thank you, guys. And number 3, approval of minutes for the meeting of May 19th, 2025 and May 22nd, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Bessie,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now I'm ready to turn the meeting over to, no, excuse me. We're now ready for public comments. And anyone who would like to speak, do we have any public comments, Madam?
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 speaker cards.
All right, thank you.
The first speaker is Alan Daniel. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm shorter than most. I'm Alan Daniel, 100 Fernworth Court in Clemens. I first would like to thank you all for the decision that you made regarding the funding of the schools. I think that was appropriate given what we know and what we don't know. I addressed this issue in the public hearing on the budget and just would like to reemphasize it. And also I appreciate, and I haven't seen the last year versus this year comparison for what you all are doing to verify the use of the Article 46 and the local supplement Dr. Martin, in your remarks on the Thursday morning meeting, I believe it was, you said that that was one area that you all do have authority over. You commented specifically on the Article 46. And I would like to add that 19.8 million is also, it's designated as teacher supplement, and you all certainly are within your rights to verify that it's used for that. And I would encourage you to verify that down to the names of everybody that gets that. The other thing that I addressed and would like to see, that $19.8 million has not changed since you all very wisely added that to the ordinance when the Article 46 came into existence. At that time, that 19.8 million made up 12.2% of the school budget. As of last year, it was down to 11.5% of the budget, and this year, that 19.8 represents 11% of the 180 million. So what we're allocating to our teachers by ordinance or by whatever you call it is decreasing. And one would think that the school system would, as their budget increases, keep that number relevant, but they have not. So what I would like to suggest is that rather than locking in 19.8 million, not to ask you to give the school system more than you would already give them, but to say of the, say in this year, $180 million we're going to give you, we are going to set aside 12% of that for supplements. That way, that number increases as the budget increases. Currently, teachers are the only people in the district who have not received an increase except for whatever Article 46 increased. While they get a state increase, their local supplement funded by this 19 million is a fixed number, not a percentage of their salary. So the person at 15 years, that number hasn't changed. So they don't really, the 15% step hasn't gone up 3%. It's gone up some fraction less than that. So that I'm going to recommend to the school board that they amend their schedule, but I would just encourage you all to make that 19.8 a percentage rather than a hard number. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last speaker is Marcy West. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Commissioners. Marcy West, 331 Carolina Circle. I just want to talk a little bit about the budget. I absolutely thank the commissioners. I understand this year was a very, very challenging year. I know that there are a lot of new principles that the county manager and her team has put into place. It is very, very wise that you do not dip into those the fund balance any longer, and that we're now using a new process for that. The planning that's in place for the capital funds is a very good idea. There's no doubt this has been a really difficult year. But I will say that I think that the planning has not been conservative enough on the revenue side from a sales perspective. So the sales tax number is actually an increase this year from last year's budgeted amount, and yet the proposed amount that's out there is actually proposed to be less than what it was last year. We're actually in a situation right now where I don't think that you can say you expect sales to go up. And right now it's about 4% over the projected amount to next year. So I think that you're putting yourselves in a bit of a hole at the expense of, at this desire to never ever raise taxes. I know you've raised taxes a little bit. And so I just wanted to say that I think that's something that you should be concerned at. I think you should watch that very closely, and it may require some planning in advance so we don't get to a point where suddenly things have to be cut. They might have to be cut sooner. So thank you.
Now, happy to turn the meeting over to our county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioners, staff, and guests. The agenda items before you have been briefed and hopefully questions answered. Agenda item number 5 is an amendment to the State Public School Building Capital Fund Grant Project Ordinance to close the 2013 and 2015 school bond. The State Public School Building Capital Fund 2223 and 2324 projects for portions of the debt service on the 2013 and 2015 general obligation refunding bonds issues arising from the 2006 school bonds are complete and now may be closed. The total paid by the state for debt service on these bonds for the 23 fiscal year was $3,725,026, and for 24 it was $3,676,466.
I'd be happy to make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 6 is an amendment to the fiscal year 25 budget ordinance to appropriate Operation Fan Heat Relief Program funding allocation for the Forsyth County Department of Social Services to continue administration of the program in the amount of $3,275.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner Linville.
Second.
Second by
It's okay.
Commissioners Bessie and McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 7 is a resolution authorizing the appropriation of interest earnings in the Pandemic Response Special Revenue Fund and transfer to the general fund in the amount of $1.2 million, and an associated amendment to the Pandemic Response Special Revenue Fund to appropriate interest earnings and transfers to the general fund.
Happy to make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 8 is a resolution authorizing execution of a second amendment to the agreement with the Masters Touch LLC for printing, processing, and mailing services. This increases the contract by a not-to-exceed amount of $70,000, and the full contract would not exceed $1,143,000.
Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 9 is a resolution authorizing the use of a fuel credit card program for the purchase of gasoline, diesel, and other designated motor fuels at stations with extensive accessibility in an amount not to exceed $1.5 million. You all did receive an email from Chelsea Swaim following up on your questions from Monday.
Is there a motion? Motion approved by Commissioner Bessie. Second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. I'd say that was a very helpful document, which won't go into it today, but it looks like it suggests some additional study and review about I think it's good to have the card, but about its use and some other questions that it raised questions that it answered, and then it answered questions. Yes, Commissioner Bessie.
I'm sorry. I just
Yeah.
swirling my pen.
All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Chairman Martin.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Sir, yes, I just would like utilize the word oversight, so County Manager, about that.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Okay, now you can vote.
Good word.
Aye.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 10 is a resolution authorizing the grant and execution of a utility easement to Duke Energy Carolinas to construct and access utility infrastructure across a portion of Forsyth County-owned real property located at 100 Horizons Lane. This is the property leased to Horizons Residential Care Center that is currently under construction.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 11 is a resolution authorizing the grant and execution of a utility easement to the Yadkin Valley Telephone Membership Corporation to construct and access utility infrastructure across a portion of Forsyth County-owned real property located at 0 Tanglewood Park Road. This would be in an amount of $10,000, and it would provide fiber network internet services within the village of Clemens and other areas of Forsyth County.
Mr. Chairman, I would, at first, I was going to make a motion to reject, but I'll lighten it just a little bit. I'll make a motion to continue this matter for at least 30 days to see if we can find out more about it. The attorney, I can't remember exactly what he said. I asked him something about the deed of easement, and I believe he said he was not real familiar with that. And the $10,000 that was just proposed is just for, it's like buying it, seems like to me, but I'm not, I'll be open for more information.
Is there a second on the motion to continue?
Second.
We have a second by Vice Chair Wizenhut and Commissioner Woodbury. Any discussion? I have one thing. Any discussion generally? One thing I wanted to add is that I think I understand the request for a small cabinet to be on our property, and I think it is, my interpretation is just like buying it. It is buying it. But the question I have is a little more about the appropriateness of, this is a single internet provider, basically internet provider, who's going to make money selling to customers that are either nearby or in a new, soon to be, beginning to be constructed subdivision. The question is, are we willing to sell property to provider number B, or provider number 6, or provider number, how many providers are we willing to do this for if we didn't advertise and say, it's kind of like, it's almost like an upset bid. Is there somebody else that's interested in also, providing this service? And of course, the other part of it, we have to agree we want to sell it to begin with.
Well, that's, I could change my motion, but to the reject, I think I'll just do that. I'm going to change my motion to reject it because it's a little under, but it's nearly 2/10 of an acre, which is 1/5 of an acre. And that's $10,000, that's just nominal. So, Mr. Wilson, you got something to offer me?
I do. Second.
Okay.
This is the one on Idols Road, as I recall it, correct? There is, to say there's access on Idols Road is a misnomer.
To reject. I changed the motion. Is that
Got
what
it.
you're saying?
So
Second that, okay.
So
I must be going along the right lines then.
All right, so we have a motion. We have a substitute motion to change it to reject. I guess it's a substitute in that sense. And we have a second. And so with that, is there further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Ms. Wayne, thank you for the work that you do. It's not anything that you're not doing right. It's just some things comes across the desk that I don't like. Don't have anything to do with you.
Okay. Agenda item number 12 is a resolution authorizing execution of a lease agreement with Family Services for lease of 674 square feet of county-owned real property located at 725 Highland Avenue. The annual rent is $1 for the purpose of providing advocacy services and intervention programs for clients accessing the county's Bridges to Hope Family Justice Center.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner McDaniel.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 13 is a resolution authorizing execution of a lease agreement with Legal Aid of North Carolina, Inc. for lease of 142 square feet of county-owned real property located at 725 Highland Avenue. The annual rent is $1 for the purpose of providing legal and other supplemental services to clients accessing the county's Bridges to Hope Family Justice Center.
A motion by Commissioner Bessie.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 14 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Washington Perk and Provision Company, LLC, for lease of 600 square feet of county-owned real property located at 660 West 5th Street. This is the Central Library. The base rental amount would be $250 per month plus 2.5% of the previous month's profit.
Move approval.
Have the motion by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioners Bessie and McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
We can take 15 and 16 together. It's a resolution approving refunds by the interim tax assessor and collector. 15 is in the amount of $23,901.37, and 16 is $1,060.43.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner Linville,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 17 is a resolution approving the tax collector's annual settlement for fiscal year 25 and prior years. This is required by statute upon the resignation of the former tax collector to make a report of the settlement to the commissioners.
Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 18 is our April 2025 contribution-based benefit cap report.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chair Wizenhut. Be happy to second that. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I understand we have a closed session discussion. Would you read that motion?
I need to ask the board to consider a motion to go into closed session to discuss a matter relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the public body in negotiations pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A4. And since there's no other business to come before the board at this meeting, following the closed session, the meeting will be adjourned.
So moved. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bessie. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously.